On my birthday, I received an anonymous gift. It was a video. In the video, my husband had his arm around a girl and introduced her to the people present with a smile, "Meet Lunaire, my girlfriend." I paused the video and examined the two people in it. Caspian was still wearing the suit that I had picked out for him this morning and the blue tie that I liked the most. He looked noble and straight. Beside him was an unfamiliar girl. That girl was like the white moonlight that everyone would fall in love with in their youth. She was cute and pure. With black hair hanging over her shoulders, wearing a white dress, and a curved smile on her lips, she stood there quietly, like a blooming narcissus. She was held in his arms, looking shy on her face, but also accepting everyone's blessings calmly. Such an amazing girl just made me sigh. The Caspian in the video was also strange to me. I had never been involved in Caspian's social circle. After 7 years of marriage, we loved and respected each other, and there had always been an unspoken tacit understanding between us. But now, it was precisely this tacit understanding that gave him the freedom to be so calm and indulgent. In the picture, the wedding ring on Caspian's finger had been taken off. Instead, there was a small watermelon-shaped cufflink pinned on his cuff. The bright red color was particularly conspicuous on the dark suit. Perhaps it was a woman's intuition, but I was almost certain that the cufflink belonged to that girl. This cartoon-style cufflink was very different from his usual style, yet he showed it to everyone generously. It seemed that it had also brought vitality to his calm life. And he seemed to have really returned to his teenage years, with his eyebrows and eyes full of vitality, holding the girl tightly as if to declare his sovereignty. He smiled indulgently and freely. I seemed to be able to feel his secret joy from the bottom of his heart. It was so familiar. "Congratulations, my husband was in love. Baby, I'm back." After the noise at the door, Caspian bent down to change his shoes at the entrance. He put the small cake he was carrying on the side of the cabinet, loosened his tie, and began to explain to me. "I had dinner with several leaders of other companies today and came back late. I'm sorry for making you feel wronged. I brought you a small cake. Happy birthday, my dear." He walked over, with the ease and joy that hadn't disappeared yet between his eyebrows and eyes. There was also a faint smell of alcohol and women's perfume on him. He smiled and handed me the cake. I didn't take it. I quietly locked my phone screen and looked down at his cake. The watermelon-shaped cufflink on his sleeve had been taken off, and now his cuff was empty. I understood it in my heart. I knew him too well. From the moment he walked in and told me the lie that he might have practiced thousands of times, I knew that although he liked that girl, in his heart, she was just the lover he cared about but could never be brought into the light. He didn't want to and wouldn't put her on the table to fight against his stable family. The watermelon-shaped cufflink confirmed this even more, but it also made me feel more disgusted. The boy who used to be calm, passionate, and reckless had finally grown into such a worldly, greedy, and timid man. I didn't expose him. I just turned my body slightly and revealed the cake placed on the table. "I told you this morning that I would buy the cake and you would buy the flowers. Where are my flowers?" Caspian's body visibly stiffened for a moment. He had forgotten. I smiled. I had guessed this result long ago. I thought that he would then explain it casually and shirk responsibility by evading the important issues. Sure enough, he opened his mouth and said, "I'm really tired from work today. Could you please stop making a fuss? Tomorrow I'll buy you your favorite blue roses." The answer was within my expectation. I shook my head. It was extremely boring. He reached out to hug me, but I stepped aside to avoid him. I didn't like blue roses anymore. And I didn't plan to like him anymore either. In fact, there had been signs of the end of this marriage long ago. I don't know when it started, but when he was with me, he began to become irritable and absent-minded. When he noticed that something was wrong with himself, he would deliberately praise me. There was a lot of unnaturalness in our interactions. Things like what happened today had actually happened countless times. But I was too sensible at that time, understanding the sadness and difficulties of adults. I kept telling myself that in the adult world, there wouldn't be so many romantic things happening. Don't always think about troubling others, and don't fantasize about love stories like a little girl anymore. So, I hid these feelings of loss in the corner and let them dissipate with the wind by themselves. So, I became more and more tired of making demands and let the years flow quietly. But today, on my birthday, I was willing to give him the simple right to make me happy. He brought back a cake for me. And in the video, the girl was holding a bouquet of pink roses in her hands. I'm sorry, baby. Next time, I will definitely. Caspian reached out to hug me again, but I stretched out my hand to block him. I was wrong before. In fact, being more sensible doesn't necessarily mean that you can maintain a relationship better. And as an adult, the last thing you should do is to wrong yourself. There won't be a next time. He was stunned on the spot and murmured as if he had realized something, "What do you mean?" I smiled. A sense of relief swept over my whole body. Those negative emotions of suspicion and doubt that had dragged me into the abyss several times. Those insecurities that could only draw strength from others were all gone at this moment. Now, I'm just myself. Caspian, let's get divorced. Serafina, I like you so much. Hearing the voice, I put down the toothbrush in my hand and ran to the balcony. I just happened to see Caspian holding a large bouquet of blue roses and shouting my name loudly downstairs in the student dormitory. The classmates watching downstairs were booing, and people in the dormitory building were also poking their heads out to look around. Everyone was trying to find the heroine of this romantic scene. It's so embarrassing, Caspian. I was wearing a pink pajama and couldn't help feeling ashamed and angry when I saw this scene. I shouted angrily downstairs, "Come down quickly." He was wearing a white shirt, bathed in the sunlight. He and the bouquet of flowers seemed to be shining. He waved his other hand high, with a bright smile on his face. "Princess, please come and get your roses." I woke up suddenly from the dream. The sunlight shone on my face through the curtain, giving me a sense of peace and tranquility as if a lifetime had passed. I got up wearily, shook my head to get rid of the dream just now, found the coffee machine, and made myself a cup of coffee. This was the house that my parents bought for me before I got married. No one had lived in it for a long time. Yesterday, I moved in. During the 7 years of our marriage, we had discussed how to deal with this house. He mentioned that it was a waste to leave this idle house unused and it would be better to sell it. Now I'm very glad that I refused that proposal at that time. Only in this way can I have a shelter of my own now. Caspian's WeChat messages were still popping up constantly. "Baby, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have let you down on your birthday. I bought you a bouquet of blue roses. Picture. Forgive me. Look." He still thought that the problem between us was just about the flowers. I looked at that picture, the large bouquet of blooming blue roses. Blue roses, still blue roses. The sense of irony in my heart became even stronger, and I replied, "You'd better think about what our joint property is." Caspian was silent for a long time before replying, "Do you really have to be so cruel?" I met Caspian when we were 22 years old. We were in love for 2 years and married for 7 years. During these years when we supported each other, which weren't that long, he probably never thought that he would lose me. And I had practiced countless times in my mind how to lose him. I listed our joint property again and drafted a divorce agreement. I sent him the document of this divorce agreement. "Take a look. If there's no problem, sign it and go through the divorce procedures. I'm very glad that we don't have children. Now there's only the issue of joint property, and these property issues are easy to deal with." But to my great surprise, Caspian refused. "I won't get divorced." I shook my head. Although I had thought that this might be the case, it was really troublesome. I decided to be straightforward. A few days later, I invited Caspian out. He sat opposite me, still looking neat in his suit, but not as energetic as he was in the video. He rubbed the coffee cup with his fingers, looking restless. Seeing that he didn't speak, I stirred my coffee and took the lead to ask, "Caspian, since you don't agree to the divorce, what are you going to do with Lunaire?" His face suddenly turned pale. It seemed that he didn't know why I knew about Lunaire, and he was a bit at a loss. I looked at his face and shook my head. I knew him too well. One sentence could hit the nail on the head and also expose his guilty conscience. The divorce agreement I wrote is good for both of us. You should think it over. Once we enter the divorce lawsuit, Caspian, you are the party at fault." Hearing the word divorce, he woke up from his daze, and his eyes subconsciously became flustered. He opened his mouth to explain. "Let me explain. Luna Ayer is a colleague. Someone was pestering her, so I always helped her. I don't have anything with her." I almost laughed out loud and reached out to interrupt him. "How old are you?" He understood what I meant. This lie was too clumsy. For adults, such a clumsy explanation is not the way to solve problems. He seemed to realize something. His fingers slowly tightened, and he said to me, "I won't have anything to do with her anymore in the future. Can we continue?" I interrupted him again. "Caspian, do you know why I want a divorce?" He was stunned and said, "Because of Luna Ayer?" I shook my head. "No. It has never been about others. This is our marriage. Only the two of us can destroy it. I want a divorce because I'm not myself anymore, and you're not you anymore." Caspian stammered, "I don't understand." I picked up my bag and stood up, saying, "Mr. Caspian, you will understand." At the same time, I faced the screen and said, "Come out." I smiled at Caspian. "Next, it's your time with Luna Ayer." An hour ago, I looked at the girl in front of me. She was young, pretty, and pure, exactly the same as in the video. I just stared at her, without the slightest ripple in my heart. I neither felt inferior because of her purity and youth, nor was I angry because my husband was concerned about her. I just felt pity. A girl, at the most dazzling age of her life, chose to board a rotten ship. I picked up my coffee cup, not intending to exchange pleasantries, and said directly, "You're Luna Ayer, right? You asked me out. What's the matter?" Luna Ayer was still wearing her white dress, and her hair was smoothly draped over her shoulders. She bit her lower lip for a long time before speaking. "Caspian has been very unhappy recently." Did something happen? What a clumsy opening line. She couldn't even be a green tea bitch openly and righteously. She was really lacking in skill. I almost burst out laughing. "Since you asked me out, you must know that I'm Caspian's wife. And you must also know that he and I are currently in the process of getting a divorce. Since you know all this, why are you still trying to cover it up?" Lunaire's face turned even paler. She clenched her fingers tightly, as if she didn't know how to speak. "Sorry. Actually, I don't even know what I wanted to do by coming to see you. I didn't mean to show off. I also know that I shouldn't have interfered in your marriage. Although I only found out later that he was already married. But I'm already trapped. I can't save myself. I want to be with him." She was full of flaws, illogical, and talking nonsense just after being contradicted a little. I had no emotional fluctuations in my heart and stirred my coffee casually. "And then?" Seeing that I didn't fly into a rage, she gradually spoke more smoothly. She lowered her eyes and continued, "That day, I saw the divorce agreement at my workstation. To put it shamefully, at that time, I was secretly happy in my heart. I was selfish and hoped that he could divorce you. I hoped that I could be with him openly and above board, instead of being so uneasy like now. In the following days, I was looking forward to it. But I found that things weren't like that. The more I expected, the more disappointed I became. He has been very unhappy these days. He doesn't want to get divorced." She seemed to be completely infatuated. I raised my eyelids and looked at the girl in front of me. "So?" Luna Ayer looked at me and shook her head. "I don't know what I want to do either. Before I came, I originally wanted you to get back together with him, and I was willing to step aside. But just now, I suddenly felt that you, who should be in this situation, are extremely sober, while I, who should be outside this situation, am instead trapped in it, lost and confused. Miss Serafina, perhaps this request is a bit despicable, but could you please help me make a choice?" I raised my eyebrows. It was the first time I had seen a third party with such an unreasonable request. "There's everything in this big world." I sneered. "No. You should be clear. Suppose, as you said, you didn't know about it beforehand. What about now? Are you really completely innocent? You should know that besides being a third party who destroys other people's families, you are also an adult. Being young and inexperienced is not a reason for you to do something wrong in a muddled way, nor is it an excuse for you to be lazy in taking control of your own life. It's you yourself who has really made a mess of your life. I've already shown you enough respect and politeness. As for the rest, what you want to do is your own business. I raised my hand and looked at my watch, then looked at Lunaire. Caspian will be here in 2 minutes. Lunaire's face suddenly turned ashen. Ignoring her incredulous expression, I smiled and pointed to the door. You can choose to leave now. Then I pointed to the screen, or wait beside it. I don't know what the two of them talked about after I left. Perhaps they will break up after this incident, or perhaps they will become even more deeply in love after being honest with each other. It doesn't matter to me. What happens to them is not important. I looked at the recording pen in my bag. At least, this time I didn't come purely to discuss the divorce. I withdrew my gaze and walked towards the law firm. I carried my bag back to the unit, organized the recording into a text version, and started to handle the lawsuit matters. Some things are better done sooner rather than later. Oh, I heard that our lawyer Serafina is getting divorced? Congratulations. A teasing voice sounded at the door. I frowned and looked up, only to find Xavier leaning casually against the office door, with a gloating smile on his face. I ignored him, continued to lower my head to work, and retorted at the same time, Mr. Xavier, I thought knocking on the door was the most basic etiquette for a person. Xavier didn't take it seriously. He walked in, sat down, crossed his legs, and said smugly, Miss Serafina, I thought that with our 20-year relationship, we could dispense with this hypocritical etiquette. I saved the file, closed my laptop, and raised my eyebrows to look at him. Even knowing that I'm getting divorced, our 20-year relationship isn't enough for Mr. Xavier to be so well informed and inquire about so many of my private affairs, right? Xavier shrugged. What kind of privacy is this? The matter that Caspian had an affair and is getting divorced has already been widely rumored in the company. I heard that he took a week's sick leave in a row. On the contrary, you go to work on time. That's quite impressive. Widely rumored? How did his company know about this? I suddenly remembered what Lunaire had said. That day, I saw the divorce agreement at my workstation. I held my forehead, feeling a headache. During our 7-year marriage, we never brought private affairs into our careers. Now, he didn't seem to care about it at all. I just didn't expect that once this layer of window paper was pierced, it would turn out to be such a big hole. I withdrew my thoughts and sorted out the files in my hand. In recent weeks, although I was very tired inside, I didn't bring my personal emotions into my work. Marriage was important to me, but I had never regarded it as my final backup. Facts have proved that it really couldn't be my backup either. Caspian is still as useless as before. I said so. Xavier laughed for a long time beside me. Suddenly, he thought of something and said seriously, by the way, lawyer Serafina, recently, the Xavier family and the Song family have a big project to cooperate on. Come and guide our legal team. The consultant contract hasn't expired yet. I looked at my watch and found that there was still time, so I picked up my bag. Let's go now. Xavier could be regarded as half of my childhood friend. Starting from the competition class for the junior high school entrance examination, all the way to high school graduation, we had always been competitors in study and mutual help friends in life. However, after graduating from high school, he went abroad to study in order to inherit the family business. And I stayed in China to pursue my dream and studied at the Taipei University. A few years ago, he graduated from graduate school, returned to China to inherit the family business, and made the family business even bigger and stronger, which is the current Xavier family. And there has always been a legal consultant contract between me and the Xavier family. So, unconsciously, Xavier and I became partners again. Coincidentally, the place where Caspian worked was exactly the Xavier family, but I had always kept my work and life clearly separated. Just as the Xavier family never knew about my relationship with Caspian, I never mentioned Caspian's work to Xavier. Everyone climbed up on their own merits. In the car, Xavier tilted his head to one side to look at the scenery. Suddenly, he asked me absent-mindedly. Are you really getting divorced? Is it because of that one something? I looked at him in surprise. He seldom inquired about my private life, but today, he had already asked twice. I smiled and retorted, President Xavier, please mind your own business. Xavier pursed his lips and turned his head away, ignoring me. I didn't have time to pay attention to him either and continued to sort out the materials in my hand. When the car arrived at the Xavier family building, unexpectedly, I saw Caspian. He looked much older, with a scruffy beard and in extremely poor condition. Luna was beside him, gently holding his arm and looking up at him while talking. Before I could say anything, Xavier's face darkened first. He cursed under his breath and said to the driver, any random people can be hanging around and being affectionate at the entrance of the Xavier family? The driver was smart and sensible and knew what to do. Immediately, he honked the horn twice, and the security guards of the Xavier family quickly cleared the scene. Luna and Caspian were politely asked to step aside to make way for the vehicle. The security of the Xavier family was in place, and the corresponding person in charge had already been waiting at the entrance. When we got out of the car, the relevant project leader quickly handed the materials to Xavier and me, and a group of people surrounded us and walked towards the conference room. Serafina. From a distance, I seemed to hear someone calling my name. Miss Serafina, regarding this part of the content, the legal department will connect with you in a while. The project leader beside me spoke, clearly listing the key points and marking the parts with problems. I pulled my attention back to the project and pointed at the materials. Focus on this part when we talk about it later. As soon as I walked out of the law firm, I saw Caspian on the roadside. He had a scruffy beard and dark circles under his eyes that almost reached his cheeks. He blocked my way, holding a piece of paper in his hand, with his eyes red. Are you really going to be so heartless? Except for the matter with Luna, I think I haven't done anything to you in our marriage. Why do you have to divorce me? Can't I admit that I'm wrong? I'll change whatever you want me to change. I glanced at his clenched fist. It seemed that he had received the court summons. No wonder he suddenly came to beg for peace with me again. I smiled. Why except for Luna? Caspian, you think you haven't done anything to me. That's just what you think. Since we're husband and wife, you might as well think about how we can divorce gracefully. Caspian seemed to be deeply hit and murmured, you really want to get divorced? He seemed to think of something, and his eyes suddenly became strange. Do you, like someone else? Last time at the Xavier family, I saw you with President Xavier. I called you, but you didn't respond. Caspian. I interrupted him. I seriously looked at the man in front of me. The dejection, sadness, madness, and jealousy in his eyes seemed to overflow. This man was no longer the clear, bright, and noble young man he used to be. I stared into his eyes and said word by word, do you want to listen to what you're saying? Do you think everyone is as despicable as you? Do you think that just because you're despicable others must be as despicable as you? When did you become like this? He seemed to realize that he had said something wrong too. He reached out to pull me but grasped nothing. He opened his mouth, his voice hoarse, sorry. Don't leave me. Without even looking at him, I directly sidestepped past him and left. The morning sunlight spilled into the room and the quiet morning seemed to be disturbed by some noise. I got up in my pajamas and pulled open the curtains. Downstairs, blue roses were all over the ground, arranged into a big heart shape. The residents who were taking a walk in the community in the morning were all looking around curiously, wanting to gather around to watch a romantic scene. Caspian was standing beside the blue roses, his white shirt almost seemed to shine in the sunlight. When he saw me open the curtains, he broke into a big smile. He waved his hand and called my name loudly, Serafina, I like you. I love you. I quickly pulled the curtains shut. It was really disgusting early in the morning. Did he think that he was still that innocent and fearless 20-year-old boy? I directly dialed the property management's phone number. Someone in the community is disturbing public order, which is not conducive to the quiet and clean environment of the community. The property management responded quickly, okay, miss. We'll send someone to check it out now. After hanging up the phone, I felt refreshed, the light of justice shines brightly across the land. At the same time, I received another text message on my mobile phone. I swiped through the message and curled my lips. Double happiness. On the day of the court hearing, Caspian came. He was dressed in a suit and tie, wearing the suit that I liked the most, and put on the wedding ring that he hadn't worn for many years. During the pretrial mediation, he was outspoken and said that he was unwilling to get divorced. He looked at me, his eyes full of determination. There is no actual breakdown of our relationship. In this lawsuit, as long as I don't agree to the divorce, we won't be able to get divorced. Serafina, you taught me these things. I still like you. Come back. Looking at his determined look, I laughed. Did I ever teach you that I, Serafina, never fight a battle unprepared? The judge saw that the situation was not good and was afraid that we would argue. He called me aside and sighed, "Lawyer Serafina, you've heard it too. He doesn't agree to the divorce." "This is your first divorce lawsuit," I nodded. I understood the implications. In the first divorce lawsuit, if the other party doesn't agree to the divorce and there is no situation of marriage breakdown, the court will generally rule against the divorce. It's very difficult to get a divorce granted in the first lawsuit. Caspian was quite right. Perhaps you can mediate and reconcile. In the second divorce lawsuit, this mediation document can be used as evidence of marriage breakdown, the judge suggested. How could I not know that, in the absence of evidence to prove the breakdown of the marriage, mediation and reconciliation is also a simple and quick way to lay the foundation for the second divorce lawsuit. But I shook my head. I insist on proceeding with the divorce lawsuit. The judge understood and nodded. Okay, then let's prepare for the court session. Caspian was smart enough not to hire a lawyer to oppose me in court. He just asked someone to write a watertight defense statement, with every word describing the 9-year relationship between us. 2 years of being in love and 7 years of marriage, bit by bit. It was really moving. After playing the emotional card of not agreeing to the divorce, there was also the issue of how to handle property division if divorced. He was extremely cautious. As a lawyer, these defenses were tactics that I was all too familiar with. Now, these tactics were all being used on me. I watched him read carefully word by word. Behind the emotional outburst were the calculations hidden between the lines, those little cautious moves. I could see through at a glance. Suddenly, I really wanted to laugh. I had always thought that after 7 years of marriage, our relationship was too familiar. It turned out that our 7-year relationship had already been exhausted. During the process of presenting and cross-examining evidence, Caspian saw that video. He saw himself with his arm around Lunaire, smiling openly. Meet Lunaire, my girlfriend. Hearing the cheers, whistles, and blessings in the video, his face gradually turned pale and he couldn't say a word for a long time. When the recording of my conversation with Lunaire was played, he clenched his fingers tightly, turning them bluish white. He stared straight at me, as if accusing me of why I had recorded it. It wasn't until the judge reminded him to conduct cross-examination that he trembled and said, "I was just joking. There's nothing between her and me. It's all her wishful thinking." I guessed that he would refute like this. After all, he had always been so clumsy at lying. He flipped through the legal provisions at hand, stammered and read out the provisions of the Civil Code, repeatedly emphasizing that our situation hadn't reached the serious level of marriage breakdown and repeatedly stating that I had no evidence to prove that there was a substantive relationship between them. At this point, I couldn't help laughing. I originally wanted to leave you with the last bit of dignity. Now it's unnecessary. I looked at the judge and took out the appraisal report in my hand. I applied to submit one last set of evidence, the paternity test report. On the day when Caspian laid out the blue roses downstairs of my house, I received a text message from Lunaire. It was a photo. The ultrasound report she took. With a sentence attached, "You helped me. This time, let me help you." I looked at this sentence, my eyes gloomy. Caspian suddenly stood up when he saw the paternity test report. "This is impossible." The judge tapped the gavel. "Defendant, please pay attention to court discipline." I looked at him and smiled. If you have different opinions, you can apply to the court to appoint an appraisal institution to conduct a paternity test again. Caspian looked into my eyes and couldn't say a word for a long time. Based on his understanding of me, he knew that I never joked about such things. His face finally turned pale inch by inch. He couldn't say a word anymore. After coming out of the court, I looked at him. Mr. Caspian, do you understand that sentence now? He stared blankly at me, as if there were many things he wanted to say to me, but he couldn't say a word. He just shook his head numbly. I looked at him. This is our marriage. Only the two of us can break it. I want a divorce because I'm no longer the person I used to be, and you are no longer the person you used to be either. Not prosecuting you for bigamy and just proceeding with the divorce lawsuit is the last bit of dignity I've left for you. Let's part on good terms. Caspian agreed to the divorce. I rejected his request for mediation and asked the court to make a judgment according to the law. Before long, the court issued a judgment granting the divorce and made a fair handling of the property. On the day I received the judgment, I received a bunch of daisies. There was a card attached, "Wish you a new life." I looked at the flamboyant handwriting and smelled the daisies, feeling extremely carefree in my heart. I'm getting older and don't like flashy roses anymore. Simple daisies are my comfort. I put the flowers aside. I opened the chat page on my phone, found a person, and sent an emoji of shaking hands. After thinking for a while, I still added a sentence, "Thank you. Goodbye." Then I added this person to the blacklist. After the divorce, my work focus completely shifted to my work. My career was booming. During the busiest time, I almost had to sleep in the law firm every day. Every time, Xavier would bring midnight snacks to the law firm after work and open his computer to work overtime on the table beside me. My friends jokingly asked me if I was going to become the mistress of the Xavier family. I had no interest in such teasing. After the long marriage ended, I just wanted to quietly settle down for a while. I was still full of enthusiasm and love for the future. I'm not afraid to accept others' affection or even start a new relationship. But the prerequisite for all this is that I can completely find myself. During this period of settling down and working, it seemed that I had completely separated from the former me who was immersed in love, full of hope and constantly numbing myself with reason. Looking at my marriage from the perspective of an observer, it's easy to see that what I lost in that marriage was not love, but the ability to love myself well. Once a person invests too much hope and expectation in others and relies too much on others, they are handing over the right to make themselves happy to the other person. They are also handing over the right to love themselves to the other person. And divorce is like breaking the shackles on me and setting me free. Saying goodbye to the past life and living in the present forever from now on. Have you heard? Your ex-husband was fired. During afternoon tea, my friend accidentally mentioned Caspian. I shook my head. After the divorce, this name seemed very distant from me. Seeing that I didn't know the reason, she sighed. It seems that he had improper contact with a rival company and was discovered by the management of the Xavier family company. My hand paused. What was going on? I hadn't heard Xavier mention it. I took out my phone, ready to call Xavier to ask about it. After thinking for a while, I put it down again. Since he didn't tell me, he might have his own considerations. Unexpectedly, my friend dropped another bombshell. Do you know that your ex-husband was dumped? Me? Seeing my puzzled look, my friend excitedly started gossiping. It said that after your divorce he proposed to that lunaire. But instead of agreeing, the girl had an abortion right away, didn't leave a word and just left. Your ex-husband went crazy. He thought that you two had conspired to deceive him and went mad for quite a while. Later there was the matter of improper contact. It seems that there's something wrong with him. Who would have nothing better to do and keep targeting him to harm him all the time? I almost choked on my coffee. I put down the cup and coughed a few times. I had mixed emotions inside. It hadn't been long since the divorce. Was his life already so eventful? Thinking about this period of time, I had been working overtime like crazy and really hadn't paid much attention to outside affairs. Xavier came to work overtime with me every day after work, but he hadn't mentioned any of these messy things. Thanks to this period of settling down, without too many unpleasant things bothering me, my work was going smoothly now and I was in a calm and carefree mood. I wiped my mouth and looked down at the coffee cup. However, I saw Lunaire again 5 years later. I was invited to give a lecture for students at University A. After the lecture ended, I exchanged greetings with the law school professors and walked out of the lecture hall. A figure appeared outside the lecture hall. The professor enthusiastically pulled us together and introduced us to each other. Lawyer Serafina, come and meet Lunaire, a doctoral student in the School of Economics. Lunaire, you've always said that you admire Lawyer Serafina very much. Now that you've met her, why don't you say anything? I looked at the person in front of me. Her temperament was quite different from before. She had shed the purity and naivety of her school days and instead had a bit of the calmness that comes from experiencing life. Her gentle long hair had been cut into neat short hair, and the white dress that showed her ladylike charm had been replaced by a casual cotton and linen coat. She was no longer a caged little white rabbit but more like a rising flame. Hello, Lawyer Serafina. She looked at me, her eyes clear yet complicated. I've always wanted to thank you in person. And I also wanted to apologize to you in person. I raised my hand to stop her from speaking. There's no need to talk too deeply when we first meet. I prefer to live in the present. The professor was confused beside us. Only she and I knew what we were talking about, but now I don't want to bring up that meaningless past anymore. I only care about every golden moment in the present. After knowing that Caspian had cheated on me, didn't I hate him? Of course I did. I hated him and also the person who destroyed my family. Those gloomy emotions were like winding vines, filling my heart, making it hard for me to eat or sleep well. The boiling anger and hatred once made me want to take revenge and make everyone disgraced. Until one afternoon I read a sentence in a book, for my own sake, I must forgive you. One cannot always keep a poisonous snake in one's breast, nor can one rise at night to plant thorns in the garden of one's soul. It was like a loud bell ringing, and my mind went blank. Since then, I've become myself again. It's not about forgiveness but rather not pouring my energy into others anymore. Work, enjoying flowers, taking walks, my life has been getting better and better. After the first face-to-face talk with Lunaire, I was even more certain of this idea. This girl, who was so full of romantic thoughts but lacked intelligence, posed no threat to me at all. She even got flustered and wasn't even qualified to be a bad person. I called her and Caspian together and faced this chaotic situation directly, which was to help both her and myself. I believe that after that incident, she must have also seen clearly what she really wanted. Of course, everything I did got positive feedback. Before the court session, I received a photo of the ultrasound report sent by Lunaire. She agreed to cooperate with me in all inspection work and indicated to me that she could even cooperate with the court to have a paternity test redone. Whatever her original intention was for agreeing to help me, I was happy about it. With her cooperation, I obtained the original valid evidence. After successfully getting divorced, I sent her, "Thank you, goodbye," and blocked her. This is pretty much the most that can happen between the original partner and the third party. However, I didn't expect that after we successfully got divorced, she had an abortion and broke up. I'm not sure whether they really broke up because of the breakdown of their relationship or whether she wanted to help me get divorced and only broke up and had an abortion after I divorced Caspian. It doesn't matter. Everything has passed. And now, I looked at the Lunaire in front of me, her eyes were red, and after hearing my words, her tears couldn't stop pouring out. She crouched down, sobbing uncontrollably. The intermittent choking sounds drifted away with the wind, and I heard her say, "I'm sorry. Thank you. You've let me be reborn." During these years, Xavier has been by my side. He didn't put any pressure on me. He just inadvertently entered my life and slowly made me get used to his presence. I always teased him. "Hasn't your mother urged you to get married?" He always smiled smugly. "The Xavier family is thriving. She's too happy to care about anything else." I said "oh" and didn't reply. Xavier was working in my office with his laptop in his arms. The light shone on his side face. He wore gold-rimmed glasses on his high-bridged nose, looking reserved, focused, and gentle. I propped my head up and stared blankly at his side face. He stopped typing, turned to look at me, and suddenly grinned, showing his big teeth. "What do you suddenly think I'm handsome?" The filter was broken. The familiar cheekiness was back. The corner of my mouth twitched. I withdrew my gaze and gave a hee-hee laugh. I just suddenly remembered the little fat boy who used to grit his teeth and cry loudly when he couldn't beat me in exams when we were kids. Hearing his own embarrassing past, he wasn't in a hurry. He put away his computer, sat beside me, and said with a smug look, "So that's what you were thinking about just now. So you were thinking about me." Why did the same sentence sound different when it came out of his mouth? I waved my hand to tell him to stay away from me. Xavier smiled even more happily. "Now you don't even dare to look at me. You're so shy." "I'm quite pleased." I twitched the corner of my mouth and retorted, "To be honest, you're a bit cheesy now. You're like the overbearing CEO with an oily smell." He stood up and flicked my forehead. "You're good at making metaphors." I propped my head up with my hand, lost in thought. Suddenly, I thought of something and turned to ask Xavier, "I've never wanted to get married. Aren't you wasting your time staying by my side like this?" He folded his arms and leaned back in his chair, raising an eyebrow and saying, "As a lawyer, how come you can't figure it out? If you don't want to get married, aren't I the beneficiary? With such a big Xavier family, you really don't want to share it at all." I laughed. "I really don't fancy your Xavier family." "All right, President Xavier is not stupid at all." When he saw me laughing, he also laughed. His smiling eyes were curved, and his eyes seemed to be filled with tiny stars. "I just want to be with you all the time. If you want to get married, then get married. If you don't want to, then don't. It doesn't matter. As long as you let me stay by your side, that's enough. Don't make me an insignificant person again." The last sentence was very soft, almost a murmur, and I didn't quite hear it clearly. "Huh? What did you say for the last sentence?" I said. He leaned close to my ear. "The moonlight is beautiful tonight." I looked out of the window at the sky. Indeed, the moonlight was very beautiful tonight. The end.